All right. I would normally say let's just circle up and sort of sit around a table and we can just talk, but this is being recorded so we can put it up so other people may want to see it. So if you'll indulge us this evening, I first want to introduce myself. My name is Peter Noonan. I'm the superintendent of schools here in the City of Falls Church. Proudly heading into my halfway through my third year here. Very excited to be able to work with you and to work with your students and the families here in the City of Falls Church. We have a few people that I want to certainly recognize that are here. I'll start with our Vice Chair of the School Board, Greg Anderson, is here. School Board-elect Laura Downs is here as well. Yes, congratulations to Laura. John Brett, who's our Director of Communications, is here. Marty Goodell is our School Board Clerk and Administrative Support is here. And then William Bates is our Chief Academic Officer. And then we have Mary Beth Connolly is also here tonight. Mary Beth works in the schools as our Community Outreach Coordinator and also is the Vice Chair of the City Council. So thank you for all being here and being part of this evening. So tonight, first of all, again, thank you for coming. Tonight, our hope is to try and accomplish a few different things. And so what we've done is we've lined out a couple of things that we want to be able to share with you tonight. The first is sort of the process that we went through to get where we are tonight, to have these four options, to make sure that you as community members feel well informed about the process that we went to and are informed prior to the survey that's going to go out. So the survey about these calendars is going to go out starting tomorrow, and it will go through the Thanksgiving holiday. So you have an opportunity to kind of continue looking at, studying, and thinking about the calendars before you make your decision about how you want to rank order them. And that ultimately will be how the survey results will come in, is rank ordering the one you like the most all the way down to the one you like the least. And that will then ultimately inform the school board as they make decisions about the direction of the calendar. The third is to clarify any questions that you may have with respect specifically to the process. We also would ask that if you do have questions, we can document those. And so we've got some sticky notes over there because we'd like to be able to add those to the FAQ, which has been put up on our website because we do have a number of frequently asked questions and we continue to populate that over time. And then the last is to share the four calendars in a little bit more detail. And Shauna Russell has just joined us, school board member, thank you. But being able to share those four calendars and talk about sort of the theory of action behind each of those with all of you. So with that sort of as our agenda, and because there's so few of you here, I think we can dive right in, but I don't anticipate that this will take the entire hour and a half or 2 hours, but we're here for you, so whatever we can do to support your learning and knowing about the calendars, that's what we certainly want to do. So the ad hoc committee is the group of people that developed these four calendar options, and I wanted to put up and thank them sort of publicly for their work. And you'll see, if you look at this list of people, it is a wide range of folks. So we have PTA presidents that were part of this. We have athletic booster president that was part of this. We have some facilities and transportation. We have daycare. We have each of our schools represented. All of our teacher associations are represented as well. And then our student representative to the school board, Niharika Singhvi, also was part of this committee. But it was a very rather large committee of people that agreed to come to 3 different meetings to begin and to work on these four options that you've been presented with tonight. Their meetings, just at a glimpse, were these dates, October 16th, the 23rd, and November 6th. And on the 16th, for those of you that may have come to the last presentation, the community meeting that we had, I went through the drivers, and I'll talk about a couple of those again tonight. But at the first meeting, the ad hoc committee was introduced to the calendar drivers, those things that go into the calendar that make it what it is. They also looked at some calendar basics and then began to review their charge. And their charge was to develop 4 calendars that could go out to the community. And there had to be 2 that were pre-Labor Day and 2 that were post-Labor Day. We didn't tell them when to start those calendars, what day to start, when to end. or when in that 14-day window that school would start, it was really up to the committee, and they would take the information that was given to them and try to make it fit. At the second meeting, they did develop those options, and they developed those 2 pre- and post-Labor Day options. They also came back with drafts that they could then begin to manipulate and kind of think about in ways that were meaningful and made sense to develop the calendar with all of those drivers included. And then the last meeting on November 6th, they, between that date of October 23rd and November 6th, each of those constituents were asked that were on the ad hoc committee to go back to the people that they were representing and ask for further input. So the presentations that you see tonight, or the 4 calendars, are not just the work of the ad hoc committee, but it's really hundreds of people that have viewed these and given input at this point around these calendars. And so on November 6th, those ad hoc committee members came back, shared the input that they received from those constituents that they were representing. They talked about them, and then they finalized those 4 options. And then on November 12th, 2 days ago, there was a presentation to the school board. Some of you may have watched that online, or maybe not, I don't know. But we presented to the school board what the 4 options were, and we started to ask, they answered some questions that they had asked of us. So just to give you a visual of kind of what it looked like, we met at the central office, the team of folks that were there. And you'll see in each of these pictures, we blew up each month for each calendar committee. There were 4 committees, 1 for each calendar. They were given sticky, kind of like you have, that were color-coded, and they were numbered. And the first stack was 180, and those were the days that needed to go in there. And then there were holiday color coding and the like. And then they started to kind of just put it all together. And so you see kind of what it began to look like. Here's another picture. Mary Beth Connolly was also on the committee. Thank you very much, Mary Beth, for being part of that. And then over on the right-hand side is Joanne Woods, who's a teacher at Mount Daniel, and she was presenting her team's options that they came up with. So just to kind of go back for a second and review what and why goes into a calendar. It really is, to steal a phrase, it's a little bit like sausage being made. It's not something you really want to be a part of necessarily, unless you kind of like diving into sort of a really tough puzzle or a Rubik's Cube, because there are a lot of moving parts that are associated with it. But our calendar really was meant to sort of think about what goes into the calendar, what values does it reflect, sort of what did we hear from the community, and that's why that ad hoc committee then going back out to people and hearing from them was really important, and also then being able to put it out to the community in a survey to get your feedback about which you like and which you didn't like. We talked at that meeting about the Virginia legislation, and that's sort of why we are where we are, is Virginia passed some legislation last spring that said schools can start up to 14 days prior to the Labor Day. We talked about the pre-Labor Day, post-Labor Day starts, the current state of the Commonwealth. I mentioned this last time, and you may have heard that before, but there are 24 schools in our region, which is Region 4, and we're one of 3 school divisions that doesn't start before Labor Day. Everybody else does. The other 2 are Arlington and Alexandria, and Arlington currently is looking at a pre-Labor Day start. Alexandria is sticking with a post-Labor Day for now. And then we shared with the team the engagement plan. So here are the drivers that the team got to work with. Just a few, just to be illustrative more than anything. 180 days of instruction have to go into our calendar, and that's a Code of Virginia piece that we really pay attention to. Our teachers are on contract for 200 days, which means that there are additional 20 days that are teacher work days, professional development days, and some flex days that go into the calendar. We do our best to balance quarters as closely as we can to create 4 45-day quarters. Sometimes they vary by 3 or 4 days, up to 4 days sometimes. But we try to balance them as best we can. We looked at the testing windows, and I shared those the last time at the last meeting here, where we looked at when are SOL tests, when are IB tests, when are AP assessments, when are our reading assessments, and the like. We look at all of the holidays sort of in mass. We looked at our athletic calendar. So when does VHSL sports begin? When do they end? What are the state requirements? What is the school board's guidance? And previously, the school board has indicated that they really like to have school end by as close to June 15th as possible. And then we looked at those professional development days and professional days for our staff. The feedback that we received prior to even engaging in the calendar development that came through loudly and clearly from the community of people that the ad hoc committee were representing were that everybody was really sort of excited about maintaining a 3-day Thanksgiving holiday. There's something about having that Wednesday before Thanksgiving to be able to travel, and that was important to the folks that were on the ad hoc committee. They also were looking at a 2-week winter break. That was something that was equally important to the ad hoc committee, ending by June 15th. Another was looking at time off each month, so making sure that as best there could, there'd be 1 day a month where either it was a teacher work day, a professional development day, or a day off, however that fell. Looking at flex days, and those days are teacher work days, but they can fall anywhere throughout the year and also are sort of ill-defined. And they're ill-defined so that teachers can work through whatever their needs are for that particular period of time during the school year. As I indicated, looking at the alignment of the school calendar with our Virginia High School League sports starts. So those of you that have high school students, you know that our first football game, for example, this year here at George Mason actually happened before school started. So our calendar compared to VHSL is out of alignment with VHSL. We looked at planning days at the end of each quarter. Those were important. So at the end of each quarter, you may remember we just had a couple of days off, and those days were off so that teachers could do grading, get their final data into the computers, and then work on the next quarter. So looking at when those quarters end and trying to align some days around that. And then alignment with some surrounding jurisdictions. And as I indicated in the presentation the last time we were here, I gave the demographic data about where people live. And that's important because the vast majority of our teaching staff don't live here in the City of Falls Church. And so when we are on a different schedule, it does create some circumstances where our teachers may have trouble finding daycare, for example, if they have children as well. So we want to be thoughtful to our workforce in addition to our families and students here in the City of Falls Church. So in summary, we developed a summary sheet, and I'm going to bring up William Bates here in just a second. And in this summary sheet, and hopefully you have it in front of you, we also show it up on the screen, what we've tried to do is make it as clear as possible about what the distinguishing dates are among and between the 4 different calendars. So you'll see major events, first and last days of school, graduation dates, student dates, holidays, teacher work days, and then one other thing that we have to take into account in our calendar for next year is we're calling them Mason moving days. And it's a day before the winter break and a day after the winter break, because if you didn't notice, we're building a big old high school over here. And the plan is to move at the winter break. So that day before winter break and the day after will be days that are dedicated for that move. So those days will be off for George Mason and Mary Ellen Henderson. And you might ask, well, why Henderson also? And the reason is we have many, many students that take both high school and middle school students. So if the high school's out, we wouldn't have a place for our middle school kids. So those would be in some of the calendars a day for middle and high to be off, but the elementaries and Jesse Thackeray would be on. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to William Bates. But before I do, let me just sort of try to address, if it's okay with you, a couple of questions that have kind of come up through the community that we have heard as soon as the calendars went out and became live. The first was, there is some lore out there that we have decided what we want. And I want to assure you that I actually don't have a dog in this fight. I'll be here no matter what, whether we start before Labor Day or after Labor Day. The truth of it is that this committee was asked to put together 4 calendars, 2 pre and 2 post, so that we could put those out into the community and get some feedback from the community about what your interests are about the school calendar. We have never done that before. The school calendar has never been taken to the community. It's always been done in-house, and we just tell you when school starts. So the idea of us having an idea of what we want to do and how we want to do it, and still hosting public forums and having 8 meetings doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I just want to assure everybody who's here that